with Borja at 6 p.m., but I haven't gotten in touch with him, so I'm hoping he joins, but I thought I'd go live anyway and start the stream without him and hope that he comes along to continue. They say that the bear markets in Bitcoin are time to build, and normally during the bull market, it's the euphoria with people jumping in. This time around in the bear market, people have been really busy, and they've launched what they're calling digital credit market, or just basically the birth of digital credit. And what that entails is a host of different preference shares that act as a buffer to prevent or to make the price volatility of Bitcoin, which is a very volatile asset, more manageable. And most importantly, they pay a yield. So instead of buying Bitcoin and hoping that the price goes up, and the history of Bitcoin has been an asset that's continually has these hockey stick price increases and then a collapse of between 50 to 80% every 4 years, which was the Bitcoin cycle of halvening, the halvening supply, which is built into the code. So every 4 years, the number of Bitcoin that gets issued on the blockchain, the block reward gets cut by half. It started out with 25 Bitcoin every 10 minutes, then went down to, 50, not 25. It started out with 50 in the first epoch, down to 25, then 12 and a half, 6 and a quarter, and now it's 3.125 or something like that every 10 minutes. And then the next one is scheduled to happen in, I think it's 2 years' time. I'm not so sure. So what normally happens is that once the halving happens, the supply of Bitcoin is cut by half. Oh, I think that Borja has joined, so let me add him to the stream. Hello, Borja, are you there?
Hey,
Oh, sorry, Borja.
I'm fixing the camera. Okay.
Okay, good. Let me just mute you, and then hoping that you can get your camera working. There you are. I see you, and I think I hear you.
Yeah. I can see you. Very elegant for tonight,
I got
and I
dressed
can
up.
also hear you.
Very nice talking to you too, Borja.
How's everything in South Africa?
It's very cold here in Johannesburg, and we had a horrendous storm that hit the south coast. So very unseasonal, very terrible destruction. So yeah, South Africa it's getting warm here in Johannesburg. It's not as bad, but yeah, we had like quite a scary time.
Well, I hope everything gets better over
Thank you
there.
so much. How's things in Argentina?
Argentina is also getting a bit colder because we're in the same hemisphere. So yeah, it's getting a bit colder. But today, actually, it's a very sunny day, and well, like it's very interesting times for Bitcoin as well. So things are good.
Very interesting time. But before we go with what's happening at the moment, let's start with you and how you got involved with Bitcoin.
Yeah. So that's a funny story. I've been in Bitcoin for 15 years now, Harun. I've been in Bitcoin since 2011. I came across Bitcoin because one of my best friends in high school. I was 14 years old at the time. I'm 29 now, and basically how I came across Bitcoin is this friend of mine. Um, uh, his mother showed Bitcoin to him, and so what he came to my house and he said like, "Hey Borja, you need to take a look at this," and he downloaded this software, right? That when you started it, it would start doing something that was downloading the blockchain. and I didn't know what it was. I think that at the time it weighted like, I don't know, 15 gigabytes, 20 gigabytes. And so then once that the whole blockchain was downloaded, then I was mining with my GPU, with my computer, and you could mine more or less like 1 Bitcoin a month. And I was astonished that all my savings at the time were $80, and I was astonished that I could mint a quarter of my savings every month. And I was very young to see that, to say, oh, Bitcoin is like this huge thing, it's going to become very big. I didn't have the vision to come to realize that. I was very young, I was only 14, but I did mine Bitcoin for many years because of that. And then, well, then I actually understood Bitcoin, and I saw how great everything that I had mined was, and how lucky I was that I had got into this by accident, let's say.
So, how did you go from that, being a 14-year-old Bitcoin miner, to now running one of the leading companies in Bitcoin, Roxom? What was your journey?
Well, first off, I don't know if at Roxom we are leading. We're definitely doing very innovative products, and we're definitely growing a lot. But once we are bigger than Coinbase and Binance, I will tell you like, hey, yes, we are leading. Until then, we're working a lot, right?
Well, you're definitely leading in innovation, right? You're offering like some really innovative products that we'll talk about later.
Yeah,
I think,
that for
and that
sure. That for sure, and that is what is the most fun for us, right? Right. But now we'll talk about it now in a bit. But just want to address like your question of how it went. Well, basically, Harun, like what happened was, imagine that across years you mine Bitcoin, and you have Bitcoin and so on. And for me, it was like a toy currency when I was a teenager. What can a teenager do with Bitcoin back in 2011, 2012, 2013? Not much, right? We couldn't even have any account on any exchange, and swap it for fiat or anything, because we were underage. Um, and so it's it is something that was like very it was very cool, it was very interesting, it was wow, but we couldn't actually use it. And so what happened was that many years later, in 2017, when Bitcoin went to $20,000, and I saw what I had, I just couldn't believe it. And it was then in December 2017 when I said, I need to dedicate my life to this, because I was raised in the countryside, and I would think about every single friend of mine from the countryside, very humble people, very simple people, like people that whose and families whose savings would be like nothing, maybe like all the savings for a family of any of my friends back then, especially my very small town friends, maybe the savings of our family were like, I don't know, $500, $700. And I was just thinking like, how if these families accessed Bitcoin, that was so early and still is so early, how their lives could change. And this is how in 2017 I transitioned from being like a passive holder for I had been holding Bitcoin for 6 years already in 2017, but this is how I became from being a passive holder into actually saying, I need to work in this industry. I need to dedicate my life to this. I need to make this grow. I need all my friends to access Bitcoin. I need all the people I know. I need everybody in Argentina. Everybody in Latin America should access this opportunity, because Latin America, that is like Africa, such a poor region, full, very rich in resources, and should, like, it's all countries and regions that should be very rich, however are very poor, right? And I was like, everybody in this region should access Bitcoin, should be able to access Bitcoin at least, and possibly their lives will change. And this is what sparked my will. And then I started working in the industry, and I started with a liquidity provision business for exchanges here in Argentina, and one thing took to the other, and I ended up building one of the largest consumer fintech apps here in Argentina and today in Latin America, called Lemon, where we've given Bitcoin to millions of people by one of our flagship products, which was the crypto card. It was a debit card that you could use with local currency, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, stable coins, and so on, and it would give you a 2% Bitcoin cashback. So our product had millions of users, and all of these millions of users spending with the card and so on, making Bitcoin cashback and so on. So we spread it out Bitcoin to millions of people across the region, and 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 yeah, it was like the first big success. And then I exited the company 3 years ago. I took a sabbatical, and then I said to myself, when I get bored, I will come back and build again. And the first half of my life, all the lemon part, where we did very very well. Now today has millions of users. We raised over 50 million bucks from amazing investors from all over the planet, Tim Draper, Coinbase, and many many very well known funds. Um, and so Lemon was my life stage where I worked on Bitcoin accessibility. And then the grand finale, let's say, which is Roxom, which is the second part, is like chapter two, is the Bitcoin economy, is unlocking the Bitcoin economy. So in the first part of my life, I would say I worked so that as many people as possible could access Bitcoin. And now I'm working so that all Bitcoiners can live in Bitcoin, right? And this is how it joined, and this is what everything we do in Roxom is about. Roxom is about how can Bitcoiners invest in Bitcoin terms, get Bitcoin investment products. How can they understand Bitcoin as their net worth, sorry, as their unit of account? Um, how should you think of investments, money, and so on, right? And so Roxom is what we call like a Bitcoin investment platform. It's a platform where you can hold Bitcoin, you can earn yield, you can do carry trades, you can borrow against your Bitcoin, you can invest in any other asset class, but everything is priced in Bitcoin so that you actually know if it's a good Bitcoin investment or not. You can hold any asset that pays dividends, and you will get the dividends in Bitcoin. Now, everything that we're seeing with digital credit, which is basically nuts, right? Because now we saw that SATA, for example, is going to pay daily, which means that you're going to get daily Bitcoin payments. How crazy is that, right? When I saw the SATA thing, I was like, oh my God. If you hold SATA starting from June 16th, you will earn Bitcoin every single day of your life. How cool is that? That I was yesterday on a space, and I was telling the space that this reminded me when I was 14 and I was using Bitcoin faucets, and I would get like zero point 0.1 BTC, zero point 0.2 BTC on the faucets, which was like $1, $2, right, at the time. And and I would do it every day, right? I would use faucets every day just to accumulate Bitcoin. Uh, and I was like, how crazy is this thing, man? Where a now by holding these assets you will get Bitcoin dividends every single day, right? And so this is what we like to do in Roxom, and this is like it aligns with my more spiritual part, my like life part, which is like, again, at this point I know I'm going to dedicate to Bitcoin all my life. First stage, business wise, right, as an entrepreneur, my first stage was to build Bitcoin accessibility, and this second stage of mine is to unlock the Bitcoin economy and how to allow actually people to invest in Bitcoin terms, think in Bitcoin, understand capital and investments in Bitcoin, how to have a Bitcoin income, how to borrow against the Bitcoin. Like, how can they literally live and think and invest everything through a Bitcoin lens, from a Bitcoin perspective, and with Bitcoin as the capital, as the money, as the unit of account, as the everything. So essentially, how to live and think in Bitcoin, right? And this is what we're working every day for.
So you rush through like a lot of things, and I'm going to pull you back to the very beginning when you spoke about digital credit. What is digital credit?
Yeah, so this is the question of the moment, right? Like, what is digital credit? What is this thing that is paying 11.5% stretch or 12.75? Well, now it's going to be starting next month 13%. What are these preferred shares and so on? And digital credit I would just quote Sailor and the issuers on this, but digital credit is basically what strategy and Strive are doing is let's see how the flow works just so that we understand what it is. Strategy will sell Stretch or Strive will sell SATA, and both strategy and Stretch, with the money they get from uh, all the shares that they issue and they sell, they just buy Bitcoin, right? So what is happening is that digital credit are these instruments where the issuers are getting the money they raise, they are buying Bitcoin, which Saylor says is gonna grow like 30 to 40 to 50% KGAR over the next 10, 20 years, right? And what he's doing is he's giving you 11% for it, but you lose the upside to the Bitcoin, and he's pocketing the difference. And he's essentially selling an instrument that gives you 11%. He's buying Bitcoin that yields 30, 40%, and he's pocketing the difference. So today, digital credit is this instrument that pays a dividend, which is basically based on Bitcoin's future value, that pays you a very aggressive dividend because 11% is very aggressive. That ultimately, right, Sailor has many instruments and ways in which he pays for the dividends and so on. But ultimately, if only the preferred share existed, this is being paid from Bitcoin's growth, right? So it is definitely something that has, you could say, it has, of course, risk. um, it has, you have to look at it well and so on, but essentially digital credit is a way to plug yield into the traditional system and to convert that yield and that demand onto Bitcoin. And so what Sailor is doing is basically arbitraging, and he's getting funding, he's getting capital for 11% and allocating that capital at 30, 40%. And he's pocketing the difference, and the difference he's pocketing in Bitcoin as well, because like he's accumulating more and more Bitcoin, right? So this is what digital credit is today. It's Bitcoin backed yield instruments or Bitcoin backed fixed income instruments, and they are just killing it nowadays. Many of the questions are, how will they be sustained? Well, Bitcoin's growth. How will their dividends remain at the same price? I don't think so. I think that as they grow more and more and more, their dividend rates will become smaller and smaller and smaller. But right now, we are in the phase in which, so when Stretch goes to $50 billion, $60 billion, I don't believe that they will pay 11%. I believe they will pay 5, 6. I don't know. They will pay much less. But right now we are in the. This is what I believe, right? Maybe they continue to do so. Um, but what I think, and what I see, is that today we are in the part of the curve in which we are still at a very high dividend rate, right? So right now, you're getting access to very very high yield. um, in my risk assessment and my personal assessment, I have bought a lot of fixed income. So it's not that I don't have fixed income. I actually have a lot of it. Um, and for me, the risk reward is very low because strategy has their assets to liabilities is like 6 to 1, 7 to 1. So really, there is a lot of room to grow. And so, on top of this, and just to finish, what is happening is that this digital credit thing is allowing us Bitcoiners to do the Bitcoin carry trade, which is what you're showing right there, which essentially is like, hey, then why shouldn't I borrow against my Bitcoin at 7%, which is like the rates that we are probably like releasing to the market, and just buy Stretch with it? I will pocket the difference, right? And so this is the beauty of what this has, of what digital credit has unlocked for Bitcoiners, because now Bitcoiners can actually get transparent Bitcoin yield. And I mean transparent because all throughout Bitcoin's history, people, like, all the yield products are black box. You don't know what's happening on the back end, and for the first time in history, like, you can know exactly what's going on with the money, and you know what, hey, you're borrowing at low rates, you're investing at higher rates, and this is where the yield is coming from, right? So like digital credit is not only making a boom in fiat and in TradFi, but also digital credit is allowing Bitcoiners to get Bitcoin yield, which I think is a killer product.
So I'm going to bring you back a little bit. Firstly, you mentioned the word KGA. Could you just explain what that means, please?
KGAR means compounded growth, annualized growth rate, and basically it's um, the KGAR is what's the compounded annualized growth rate of something. So like right and across the years. And so what this tells you is that the Bitcoin's compounded growth rate throughout the years and taking into account all the years prior and all the years upcoming, like based on the years prior, what you know is that at a compounded rate, Bitcoin grows. I should see Sailor's presentation, but somewhere between 30 and 40%. That's with the data of the last couple of years, and their projected growth rate. Because if you Bitcoin from $1 to $100,000, the growth is infinite, right? So, but at this point, what Sailor says is like if you take the last couple of years and you project this, right? Only the last couple of years, because again, if you take the initial years, the growth rate is what infinite, because from 0 point from 1 cent to $100,000 is infinity. Is a growth rate. So he puts a haircut there and says like the KGAR of the last couple of years is 30, somewhere around between 30 and 40%, and then this is the anchor for the whole thesis around Stretch, right?
So you're saying that instead of buying the Bitcoin asset and then going through the volatility of it going up and down, you can buy Stretch or these other preferred shares and earn yield on it. And you're not getting the upside of the appreciation in Bitcoin, but you are getting a regular yield every year or every month.
That's what Sailor's pitch is for TradFi and TradFi investors, right? Like, hey, maybe you are a 60-year-old, 70-year-old, and you kind of like Bitcoin. You don't have Bitcoin, but you kind of like Bitcoin, but you don't want Bitcoin's volatility. So what Sailor says is, I have this product for you, which is Stretch, that pays you an 11% yield per year. The yield comes from Bitcoin's upside, which you want, but you don't want the volatility. So I'm going to give you 11%, which is much less what Bitcoin will grow, but you will not have volatility, and I will be exposed to the volatility. So that is what Sailor is doing, right? And so, for example, me personally, nowadays, like the way I think about it is, if I have a cash position, I have it on Stretch because it's my way of having like yield bearing cash, um, that has some sort of exposure and link to Bitcoin. But then what I'm doing is a carry trade, because all the Bitcoin stock I have is just getting yield, and the yield I'm getting from my Bitcoin is based on the carry, right? So I would say that there's two options. If you're a Bitcoiner such as you or myself, probably like what you will want is, if you want to have full exposure to Bitcoin, then you can be doing the carry trade. So you're getting free money. You're getting like a free 2% on your Bitcoin. You can do the risk assessment you want. For me, I am doing it because I believe that the risk reward is very high. It's like the reward is very high and the risk is very low, right? And so this for me as a Bitcoiner, right? And would I hold Stretch, like swap my Bitcoin for Stretch? Well, it depends. If we are on a bear market, it makes sense because I can accumulate more Bitcoin in the way. And if we're in a bull market, I would just do the carry, right? And so, but yeah, that is what Sailor is proposing to TradFi investors. And our understanding of it is like, thank you for Stretch. We will just use Stretch as a way to generate Bitcoin yield.
So it seems like Saylor is selling his Bitcoin to honor the dividends on the yield. What kind of impact do you think that's going to have on the price of Bitcoin long term?
Yeah, I think that like a little bit how Sailor puts it is you don't want the market to. So what Sailor was saying was that some participants in the market were pricing his Bitcoin balance sheet as zero, because if he's not willing to sell the Bitcoin, then what's the u- pragmatic utilitarian value of that Bitcoin stack? Well, it's zero, because if they are not going to sell it no matter what, then right, it's having 100 billion or something that you will never ever sell, or having zero is the same thing, right? In a way, when you talk about paying dividends and so on, like it's you wouldn't count the Bitcoin stack for paying dividends. And so what Sailor is looking to do with this move, and this is explained by him, is we don't want our Bitcoin stack to be priced at zero, and we don't want the market to say that strategy will not be able to pay dividends when we have such a Bitcoin stack. And the reason for us not paying the dividends is because we don't want to sell our Bitcoin. So what he just said is, moving onwards, we are willing to sell our Bitcoin to pay for dividends, just so that the market does like includes in the risk assessment the fact that, hey, can strategy pay their dividends? Yes or no? Well, to answer that, you need to understand what their equity and cash and liquid assets structure is like. And what Sailor just did is that he's putting all of the Bitcoin he has into his liquid structure that is also usable to pay for dividends. So to be honest, I'm not worried. Number one, um, because they will always. I believe that they will always sell Bitcoin as a last resource to pay for the dividends. But then also, look, the way I look at it is, it's like Sailor says, and I'm actually a big voucher of, like, if Sailor wanted to sell Bitcoin at $125,000 just because he believes that Bitcoin is gonna go down, and his plan is to rebuy Bitcoin at $60,000, I would be fine with that, because like I do the same, like me as a Bitcoiner, all I want to do is to accumulate more Bitcoin over time. That's all I care about. Financially, all I care about is about having more Bitcoin. I do not want to have more dollars. I do not want to have more pesos. The only thing I care about is about having more and more Bitcoin. Why? If you ask me from a fiat perspective, well, because Bitcoin is going to be $1 million in less than 10 years, and Bitcoin is going to be millions and millions of dollars beyond the next 10 years, right? And so the only thing I'm concentrated in is in having more and more Bitcoin, because if I have 1,000 Bitcoin, I will have $1 billion in the next couple of years, right? And so that's all I care about. And part of that caring about making more and more Bitcoin is that if you can sell Bitcoin high and buy it low, why wouldn't you do it, right? And so I just think I'm not worried about it. Like Sailor is not looking to do what I just said. Like they have many other ways. But even if Sailor said, like, I'm gonna start trading my Bitcoin, and I'm gonna try to buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high, I would be completely fine with it. Actually, as a shareholder, I would actually be happy. Um, and so I have a very I don't think in this like just huddle way, because I want to have more Bitcoin. I will do everything in my power to buy more Bitcoin, to have more Bitcoin, and definitely buying low, selling high is a way to do that. Bitcoin yield, Bitcoin carry trades is another way to do that, as well. And there's many other ways to think how to make more Bitcoin. You could be providing liquidity to the Lightning Network. You can do many things to get Bitcoin yield or to accumulate more Bitcoin. And yeah, I just think that if Sailor wanted to sell, if Sailor tomorrow came to the market and said, I think that Bitcoin is going to 10K and I'm going to sell all of my stock now, and I'm going to look to rebuy it at $10,000, I would be fine with it. So I'm not the kind of person that thinks that, do I think that if that happened, the price would immediately go down to $10,000? 100%. But I understand that he wants to get more Bitcoin, and if that is his plan, then I'm fine with it. Like I don't see a problem there. Every Bitcoiner cancel their Bitcoin if they are looking to buy more of it on the downside. Like Sailor said it very clearly. You always want to be a net buyer of Bitcoin. So as long as you have, if you're selling Bitcoin but you have more Bitcoin, like this is how I think. Maybe others not, but at least me, all I want is more Bitcoin, and I will respect anybody who is, because I do it myself as well. I sold at 105 most of my Bitcoin stack. Most of it I sold. I have no problem to say it. And you know what? I'm up. Now Bitcoin is at $80,000. So you know what? I have more Bitcoin now than when we were at 105,000, 105. So I am happy. I'm not the just huddle. I have more Bitcoin now than 4 months ago. How good is that? Right? I have 20% more Bitcoin, and I actually didn't buy it yet, which is something that I'm seeing when to buy. We went down to $60,000, and I was high big time. I had almost doubled my Bitcoin stock. How good is that? And so you know where I'm going, right?
Earlier on, you mentioned you can either do all that you mentioned, carry trade and that to earn more Bitcoin, or to like lock your Bitcoin up in Lightning channels and that. What do you think are the implications of having Bitcoin in Lightning channels, or having Bitcoin or earning Bitcoin through these various preferred shares? What do you think are the implications of the two ways uh, of
Yeah,
of Bitcoin for Bitcoin adoption?
yeah. I think that today the Lightning Network is still very small, so the it's, I would say it's a much less risky way to deploy your Bitcoin, but also the performance is much worse, right? Because the liquidity in the Lightning Network is so much smaller that the yield that you can get and the financial opportunity for your Bitcoin is indeed much smaller as well. But again, in terms of financial risks and so on, there is none. You're just providing liquidity, and you're charging fees for that, and you're charging the fees in Bitcoin. So it's like a Bitcoin generating kind of thing that you're doing. On the side of the carry trades and so on, you are incurring into risk. You are getting risk exposure, right? Is the free money without risk does not exist. Um, and so, but the opportunity is much bigger, right? Because on stretches carry trade, for example, you can do a 2% net on your Bitcoin, and that is huge. Making a 2% on Bitcoin means that, like, extrapolating it to a big amount, is over 100 BTC, which is like roughly today $8 million. You can make 2%, which is two Bitcoin, which is $160,000, which is more than $10,000 a month, and you're making that in Bitcoin. And so, like, now Bitcoin, which is a stack which doesn't generate income, right? And that is, like, in some way, like, kind of stuck, now can generate income and actual cash flow for you. So it depends on the risk you want to take. If you want more reward, you need to get bigger risk. Once again, I do think that today, at this current stage of the market, the risk for preferreds is very, very low. And I'm fully bought in, 100%, to be honest. I do think that the risk profiles will vary over time. So I think that at the end, it comes about what's the risk you want to take, what's the reward you want to take, right? And I think that today, within the Bitcoin industry, the best risk reward product, yield product that exists out there is most definitely the carry trades that we have today.
So, a question about the carry trade, right? You are paying 7% yield on the amount that you're lending. Does that mean that are you paying this indefinitely, or is this paying off a particular loan?
Yeah, so the carry trade is very simple. What will happen is that you will borrow against your Bitcoin and pay a 7% uh, annual interest. And with that cash that you have, so let's say that you post one Bitcoin as collateral, let's say that Bitcoin is at 100K, you will get $50,000, right? And then that you are paying a 7% interest over those $50,000. And what you will do is you will buy with those $50,000, you will buy Stretch or SATA. And you borrowed $50,000 at 7%, and you're buying something that yields 11.5% with those $50,000. So now you have a 4.5% spread, right? And that is your carry. And so it's a very simple transaction. Anybody could do this by themselves. We're just putting it in a beautiful product. But if you wanted to do this at your house with whatever other things, you could do it. You could even do it with DeFi. You could send wrapped Bitcoin to DeFi, borrow at 3%, 4%, then go to Roxom or anywhere really and just buy Stretch, and you're doing the carry trade yourself. This is not a secret magic potion that we have. We are making a beautiful product, and that is why probably people are liking it and will want to use it in Roxom. But it's a very simple thing, it's a very simple trade. And that's the beauty of it, because for 15 years, we've had all these Bitcoin yield products that were like this super sophisticated market making algorithm and this and that and boom and kaboom. And that's how we went kaboom. And this is very simple. This is, hey, you borrow at 7%, you invest in something that yields more than that, you keep the difference. That's it. Bye bye. Thank you very much.
So in America, the tax implications of these preferred shares is that they consider it return on capital, so you don't pay tax. What's the situation
Indeed.
like in Argentina, and what do you think is going to be in the other parts of the world?
It depends in every country. In Argentina, for example, the ROC status, the ROC return of capital status is respected. So it depends not only on every country, but it also depends on every customer. Like at the end of the day, it is like your individual responsibility when you use like global platforms or DeFi and so on, to you are accountable of your own taxes, right? So I think that most of the countries out there normally respect the return of capital status from origin, which in this case is the Nasdaq and is the US. But then, yeah, it depends on every country. I don't know how it's for you guys in South Africa, for example.
I'm not sure either. I'm not a tax person, so I'm going to have to ask someone with more knowledge than me. But looking at your website, I also noticed that you said that each person in the individual countries need to, find out for sure. So yeah, very interesting. But Borja, I want to thank you so much for being on my show. I saw you earlier on; you were a bit tired. I think you must be speaking so much about this. It's a really exciting time for Bitcoin, and I hope to have you back on the show so you can tell me more about how you're growing as a company and how much more people you're helping getting to own all of these amazing shares and stocks.
No, it's Harry. It's been a pleasure, and we are very happy to have amazing customers and clients and users and members of our community, and most importantly, participants in this movement, such as yourself. So thank you for the invitation. For us and for me, it's an absolute pleasure. I hope that we can continue to add value and to create amazing products for you and for everybody who is in Bitcoin. And we'll always be happy to join your wonderful show and just to share what we're seeing in the market. So thank you for the invitation, and for us, it's an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Borja. Roxam, bye bye.
Thank you, thank you, Harun.